I was motivated to start UnMute when I walked off stage at Glastonbury in 2022. And it was the first time I'd ever been asked about my access rider by the stage team. And they were checking the lights and making sure everything was comfortable for me as an autistic man. And I realised doing the research that actually we could just be doing the work. My name's Andrew Lansley and I'm the creative director of UnMute, which is the first disability-exclusive artist roster in the UK. I think it's really important that something like UnMute exists because building that bridge between disabled artists and promoters, bookers, festivals, venues is something that we need to do.
Disabled artists do face a huge number of barriers in the industry. When other artists can get in a room and collaborate and play those basement venues or those attic venues that are like the staple of starting out in the industry, disabled artists are quite often locked out of that, so they don't enter the scene to begin with.
With the best will in the world, most places aren't set up for disabled performers, even when they've thought about disabled punters, and there may be camping and there may be toilets, etc, etc, access onto the stage.
I couldn't get my wheelchair through, so my mate actually had to throw me over his shoulder and he put a bar stool up on stage and he sat me down and everyone was, as you can imagine, was staring like, what the hell is going on?
I've got my bus, which is adapted for me, and I use as my changing room, as my rehearsal space, and I would be totally lost without that, because most places, if you're lucky and have a dressing room, it's up 2 flights of stairs.
I think there's a big kind of invisible barrier that is starting to get talked about a little bit more, but that is around the culture of work until you drop and burnout, absolute chronic burnout, which affects everyone, I would say, but it certainly has a massive impact on disabled artists because that expectation to fit into a mould of going, having a rough time on tour, not having a great amount of welfare considerations. Oftentimes that culture is impossible for disabled artists, so they can't even participate in the first place.
I think exposure and knowing who those people are is actually probably one of the most challenging things. There's so much noise on social media. Cutting through and getting in front of people is a massive challenge for anyone, let alone someone who might have additional challenges in their life.
Artists being able to voice what they need at the point of which they are booked. There's all those little things that we don't think about that all connect together, that build up an experience of someone going, I really want to do this, but actually I don't want to ask for it. I don't feel supported that I'm going to get it.
Unless you're a disabled person, I think it's very difficult to imagine what a disabled person's life is like.
And we're here to help communicate between our artists and between our festivals and our portfolio to make sure that there's no guesswork. You're not worrying about ramps and you're not worrying about stuff that's coming out in your communications. We're here to take that for you. We're here to take it for our artists. There's no excuse not to book us. The roster that we're launching has been chosen by a range of people from different organisations. We've had Attitudes Everything, we've had Musicians Union, and we've had Drake Music, all involved in shortlisting alongside the team from Continental Drifts and professional agents and bookers for festivals. We've also created the Companion, which is the UnMute directory, where people can search for our roster and our artists and book them, and we'll work with them. That's fabulous. But if we don't have something that suits your particular event or taste, you can look through our directory, and then we're there to kind of provide some support to our artists on that directory and finding their way. So it really feels like UnMute has just grown to be representative of the community it was designed to help.
Disabled artists are finally getting platformed in ways that they really should be as amazing, professional, diverse, wonderful musicians and music makers. In terms of challenges, the main things is the assumptions and the prejudices of people not understanding how to make adjustments and how to create an accessible environment. Music art is a human right, I believe.
The most common thing that I've found I've come up against is just being taken seriously as an artist. The initial thing is to see it as a gimmick, and when it's getting past that, that's the trick in being seen for your talent, not the disability. I don't want sympathy, I just want to be respected for my craft, for my art.
We never really tell people what people's disabilities are, which is kind of like a strange thing to do when you're booking a band anyway. Being disabled isn't a genre.
Once you really communicate and speak with the artists themselves and create pathways using their access rider, it makes it so much more straightforward and actually communicating with the artists themselves to know what they need.
And I think there's so much that disabled artists can get out of being in community with each other and finding out that others exist, because it sounds silly, but that was a big thing. When I started out, I didn't know any other artists that were talking about being disabled or that experience. So for me, it was kind of like, if you can't see yourself in the industry, then it can be really hard to imagine doing it yourself.
One thing I keep saying to everyone is like, there needs to be more disabled role models in the music industry. Comedy, for example, has come through. You've got Rosie Jones and people like that you know, have actually established themselves now on the mainstream and things like that young people can look up to and think, oh, I can do that. But for some reason, the music industry is lacking that. There's not really any big role models that the next generation can look up to and go, oh, wow, they're doing it, I can do that. It's nice to know that in future there'll be things in place to inspire.
I think my biggest hope with UnMute is that it works as a catalyst to form a sort of organisation of people who are really committed to trying to make these things happen.
What we would really like is access to a national and regional database of artists. We'd like to diversify our lineup, we'd like to invite more disabled artists. In order to do that, to fit in with the different stages and genres, as a festival we need access to quite a broad range of artists so that we can book the artists that are right for the stages. So what would really help is access to and more awareness of what artists are available.
With amazing programmes like the UnMute roster and things like that supporting it, yeah, it's a game changer, I think.
I'm really, really, really excited for the future.